On the agenda tonight, we're going to be taking a look at another featured artist in episode 5 of Under the Spotlight. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another episode of Under the Spotlight. If you do enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So tonight, we're joined by Robin Spanell, who you may know from his YouTube channel called Shatner's Hairpiece. Robin is all about extended original guitar jams, and we're really talking extended here with anywhere from 2 to 4 hours of unedited improvisations. You'll be able to find all of Robin's links in the description below, including his Patreon page if you want to get involved yourselves supporting Robin's musical journey. Tonight he's taking his normal approach, improvising his solo over the backing track which he has never heard before. So let's see what Robin's got in store for us as he goes under the spotlight. And there we have it. So when we're looking at this solo from Robin, a really important thing to take into consideration is the fact that he's never heard the backing track before. So you can't really analyze it in terms of a solo that somebody's worked out. And I love this kind of approach. Anybody that's seen my In at the Deep End series that I did with Daniel Donato and Michael Palmisano will see that approach that we had where we're soloing over a backing track that we've never heard before, so it's just pure improvisation, and that's exactly what we're getting here from Robin. So when we're diving into this, it's just going to be a case of trying to follow what Robin's doing mentally, how he's working things out to begin with, but then once he starts to find his feet and really not necessarily even get the key. This is another thing that playing this way and effectively singing through your guitar is totally different to being given the key of a particular backing track and then just playing through scales, because you already know the key it's going to be in. So say for example you're playing in A minor, you know before the backing track even starts, if you start in your A minor pentatonic shape 1, it's going to be fine. You can literally play any of those notes and it's going to sound great if your guitar's in tune, but you don't have to worry about anything. Whereas when you're just playing over something that you don't know the key of, it's all about moving with the music and changing with the music. It's reactive. That's what music is. It's a language, and when you listen to birds singing in the morning, they're not reading it from sheet music. They are just singing. They're just hitting notes. They're communicating with each other, but it's then written down after the fact. That's what music is when you're writing it, and whether it be tab or musical notation, it's all written after the fact. The music came first. So this is a great example of how music starts, and what music is something that everybody can relate to because we can all do it. You don't have to read or write music in order to be a great musician. So let's have another little look through this solo, and we'll be breaking down some concepts, but we're not going to be going through it note by note because it isn't something that's pre-planned. It's something that is spontaneous and improvised. So let's start it from the beginning. Okay, so this first phrase, as we can hear, we've got some distortion on the sound and some delay in there, really silky smooth tone we've got going on here. And there's that wah-wah sound in there as well. So on my tone, I've kind of gone for the same approach, but I'm using the wah-wah on the floor, you won't be able to see it. But in this first part of the solo, it's very much about just getting your ear into that backing track. That's what Robin's doing here. And he's starting on his G, and pretty much it's going to be a bit random as to where you start. But where you start, and then what that sounds like with the backing track, then allows you to get a bit of a footing on where you are in terms of your shapes on the guitar. Not really thinking in keys. It might be the case that Robin might have sussed out the key very early on, but I get the impression that he wouldn't even need to know the key. He would just be able to play on his guitar over anything. And I mean, just by a process of elimination, I think once you start getting through your shapes, you then know what the key is, because you know, oh, I'm playing all of my notes here in C major. But starting out, this is where you're really just finding your feet. And we're starting on that G, and got this little slide up, 2 frets. And then we're coming down to that F. Oh, I won't call out the notes because it's not really particularly relevant, because we're not going to be playing scales here. And we go with a little slide up as well. And this is all a little bit of experimentation, improvisation, but just finding where you are with the track and where the track's potentially going. But let's have another little listen to that first phrase. Okay, so we've got this little that kind of thing. Look out for the vibrato as well. That's something that Robin throws in there. He's not letting these notes just hang. He's throwing in that vibrato to give that expression at the end of the line. So let's get into the next part. Okay, so now we've got a lot of notes following each other very quickly, and by the way, I'm using a pick here, but you'll see the way that Robin plays, he's using his thumb and his first finger. So when we're playing through these lines, he's using that thumb, and then first finger, next string, and then going down to... I'm not sure exactly what that line was, but we are pretty much here working through a shape. I think that Robin, by this time, because this is what he does, this is what his channel is all about, just improvising and being able to play over anything, he already knows where he is. And you can tell just by the speed of playing here, he's confident in his shape, he's confident in his key, where he is on the fretboard. But you can't follow notes this quickly after each other without being totally sure of where you are and where you're going. So we've got that fast run, these notes following on from each other, like that. And because of Robin's technique, it means we get this really cool legato sound to his runs, rather than having and really aggressive picking with alternate picking in there. We get that smooth legato sound, the long, smooth sounding notes, and I'm a huge fan of those with hammer-ons, pull-offs, and we get a lot of that in this performance. So let's just jump into the next phrase. I might just take it back a little bit so we don't miss any of it out. Okay, so once we've had our... we have this really cool slide up with that first finger, but it's instantaneous pretty much. We have this like that. So you might even hear a little bit of the slide coming into it. And I love the sound of this technique and how Robin executes it, having this, because you get to hit a little bit of that slide into your destination note. And another thing to point out is the way that Robin's playing this, just with his fingering on the left hand, I do say in a lot of videos about just playing guitar your own way, and this is certainly something that Robin's doing, because he's playing that 2-fret stretch with his second finger. You can see the way that I was doing it, I've got small hands, so I have to use the third finger, the little finger, whereas if I stretch it over, I can just about make it. It doesn't matter if you're playing with your second finger and your third finger, or your third finger and your little finger, just whatever's most comfortable. The important thing is the technique, just making sure that when you're playing with that little finger, pull off to the first finger and slide up. If you're doing the second finger, kind of like that. And we'll be seeing this technique a little bit later on, and Robin executes it so well. We have that same thing there. Just slowing it down there so you can hear that slide, pull off, and sliding up. Like that. So it's a really cool sound, and it's got that legato smooth sound to it because of the execution, the way that Robin just smoothly gets through these phrases. So just to quickly jump into how Robin is playing through all of these notes very quickly, and people might be thinking, how is he doing this? And a lot of it is just being very good at getting where you are and where the backing track is, being able to play along with it, effectively playing your guitar the same way that you would sing along with a song. But it's also a lot about shapes. As we can see here, when I'm playing through first, second, and little finger, that's our shape that we're playing through. Obviously with the other Under the Spotlight videos, we know the key, we know all of the chords, and I've demonstrated them in live streams as well. But having this shape, and just ending on that third finger, because that's kind of the kind of vibe that we get here. But once you've got a shape like that, now, I'll add in a little bit of wah-wah pedal. I keep forgetting that it's down there, but we're just playing exactly the same notes, but an octave apart. And you can see from my first finger, second finger, little finger, you're just repeating that cycle like that, just shifting up an octave. So it is a bit of a shortcut to speed, and you don't really need to know any scales or what key you're in. Make sure that you're playing 3 notes per string, and then you can start throwing those notes together quite quickly. You'll also notice how on the D string we change to first finger, third finger, and little finger. So we have this like that. So it means that we go. You have to do exactly the same. Be wary of changing to your B string because of the changing in tuning between that B string and the G string. You have to shift up 1 fret, but you still use first finger, third finger, little finger in exactly the same way that we did there, shifting up the octave. Kind of like that. So already we've got the little run that we can put together over 5 strings that are just the same notes getting repeated and just repeating the same shape. We're not even thinking about scales or keys here, we're just thinking in shapes. But let's get back into it. Okay, so we're spending a little bit of time in our around kind of 9th fret, 10th fret here, coming on to the 12th fret. We still got that little hammer on and pull off there. We work our way up to, and I think again we have this really cool application of technique where we have this like that in slow motion, like that. That wasn't in slow motion, that was faster, but like that. And he kind of does that third phrase as well, going into a little bend there, and then fretting high E string, 15th fret. So you get that end to the run. Really cool the way that he throws this together. And Yeah, just extemporising it all as well. You can also see from my left hand how I'm now playing first finger, second finger, third finger, because the frets are closer together. Down at the bottom they're wider, so there's a bit too much of a stretch. But now I can make these stretches a lot more easily. But because I've got smaller hands, it means that I still use that second finger and little finger here. I believe that Robin has a little stretch over with that third finger there. People might be asking, well, how do you know to go up a tone, and then a semitone, and then semitone, up to a tone? And that is something that you can work out by ear. When you play phrases that are faster, you're usually quite confident in your shape. So it means that depending on how you're playing it, going all the way to the top there, and ending with the bend if we want to. But when you're working your way through that shape, you'll be able to play these notes quickly when you get used to the way that things progress, because the notes never change when you get into your shape. It's exactly the same process as playing pentatonic shape 1 on your guitar. You know that shape, and all of the other scales, all of the other notes are shapes. This is the thing about playing the guitar. When you get used to your shapes, they're never going to move. You can always start to rely on them, and when you have a guy like Robin who's great at improvising and extemporising, he's got the shapes and he can lock into those straight away, which means that he can throw together notes a little bit more quickly because these shapes never change. So once you've got that, for example, you'll start to remember how the shapes blend together across the fretboard, and when you have gone through, you can take it down the octave. And even you can take it up, and it's just a process that you go through when you practice. You start getting used to how these notes follow on from each other. So there's that side of things in terms of knowing how to go a semitone or a tone above. You just know your shapes. But if I was playing on one string, you can do that, which is not pre-planned, but you're listening to the notes, and you are making adjustments with how far you're sliding down depending on what you're hearing back. So going down there, that was just an example that you can learn to do it just on one string. It doesn't matter where I start. If I started here, I'm adjusting either a semitone or a tone by ear. I'm not playing through, I'm not thinking of a scale doing that. You're just going with your ear telling you, oh, this is a tone, this is a semitone, that should be a tone, that should be a semitone. And it just makes that adjustment automatically. And you might not be able to do that straight away. That is just practice and training your ear. This is something that you can only do when you improvise without any safety nets of not knowing scales, not knowing keys. You have to listen. Something that I've mentioned on the channel before, again, is the way that a lot of people nowadays are learning from YouTube, watching somebody play, rather than learning by listening. And being able to decipher information and musical information with your ears rather than needing to see how it's being played. And once your ears start to tap into that, your ears will tell you where you need to go in order to find the note that you want. Let's jump back into it. I've taken it back a few seconds so we can hear the end of the last phrase. Okay, and it looks like maybe Robin's going for something here, but he then changes his mind. This is the great thing about improvisation, is you'll have these little ideas in your head, but then you'll think better of it or just change your mind on the fly. So that's exactly what that was there. But getting into that phrase, as we descended, we had this, and had a little rundown. Again, we're going to be playing these notes. I'm not sure exactly what the notes were or how Robin's thrown those together, but that... And there's a little run that happened. Let's take it back and have a listen. That's perfect timing. So we have this. Just giving you a little bit of melody here to really hold on to. Let's take it back a little bit. And listen to the melody of that. So we have this, that's sliding up to 12. Down to 7, so... So really cool melody in that. I love that delayed slide of having that... Because it's just exaggerating that journey. Really cool melody in there. I'm just going to take it back a few seconds to catch the end of this run again. Aha, so we had this... So he just puts a little bit of an ending to that sentence. Just to complete that answer of that whole run. Really cool stuff. And there's just staying around this same kind of area, throwing together this shape. Okay, so a lot of notes are happening here, and we're going to be working our way. And we're working our way, I think, all the way down. Let me just see how far we go with that run at the bottom. Okay, so second fret of the D string, so that's kind of where we end. Again, this is about just getting into your shape. Down to that first finger. Let me just have another little listen to that. And pretty much really quick down to that first finger. A little repeat rephrase there. Just pedaling between that D string, A string. Let me just take it back because there's a lot of notes happening here. Aha, and then we have it again. It's that kind of thing. Again, really cool because of the way that Robin's ending this run. We have... And I'm exaggerating it there. With slightly less exaggeration there, just landing on that third finger. I've just taken it back so we can hear the run again. Okay, so I'm going to jump in there. So we've got this, and a little slide up with the first finger. And then we're making our way up to the 10th fret, and this is just a rough approximation of what Robin's doing. I'm kind of using the same shape, but I'm just repeating phrases here in order to get myself in position for that little part, because timing-wise, that's pretty much where you want to be. And then we work up to that 10th fret. Let me just take it back a little bit. Okay, and now we've got this same technique that we had earlier. Stretch, and this might be the case that Robin's playing this with his third finger. I have to use my little finger to stretch up, like that. And then I change to second finger, third finger there. Pull off, slide, like that. So that kind of thing. Again, throwing that together seamlessly, and I love the sound of that. It's not something that I've ever worked on before, but I love the way that it just takes over. Really cool stuff. Let's just get into that final melody again. Really cool line there. We have this. So a little bit of a response, that second line. Response. Kind of like that. So just working our way into the ending now. Again, Robin hasn't heard this before, so he's pretty much just trying to figure out where this track's going to end, because there is a definite ending that happens on the backing track, and he's just following that, trying to suss out when the track's actually going to end. And there we have it, really cool fade out with the volume on his guitar. And just to explain that, we're actually ending, just taking the volume out rather than just, you know, putting a palm mute on there and stopping suddenly, just matching the mood of the playing and the backing track. So tiny little detail at the end, but something I wanted to point out. I'm just going to have a listen to those bends at the end. Okay, so we have this. And then a little slide down. So it's that little bend on the 14th fret. Pull off, I think, from 14 to 12 on the D. And a little pinch. And a little slide down. Before then placing on the little finger and first finger. And here, 9th fret of the G and 12th fret with the little finger on that D string. And this is basically adding a 9th into the chord. The underlying chord, this is kind of an interesting part of it, is our C. Let's take a little bit of this off. And when I said about Robin just trying to figure out where this is going to finish, he's actually placed in those two. That's his ending. So when you play the whole chord, it's really nice. And this is the kind of thing that if you were listening to a live band, the bass would be giving you that. It just happens on the backing track, it fades out, so we lose that C right at the end. But with that extra little 9th added in there, really cool ending. And if that bass was higher in the mix, it would just really sound, I mean, it sounds really cool with the chord. But because Robin's navigated to it from his lead playing, he's just thrown in those two notes. And again, he's just extemporising here. He's just finding out where that backing's going as he's listening to it. So actually a really cool ending, considering he didn't know when it was going to end or what the chord was that it's going to finish on. I think you're probably assuming it's going to be on your C, but probably why he then added in that 9th. So really cool stuff there to finish with. So just to conclude, if you are wanting to try and get into this kind of thing, to extemporise over a backing track you've never heard before, it isn't for the faint of heart. But if you start to do this, your playing will come on leaps and bounds. And not only that, you'll start to tune your ear. So it means that you will be able to solo over anything. There can be a band playing on stage. You can get up there and it doesn't matter what they start playing, you'll be able to play a great sounding solo. And that's exactly what Robin can do. And I know that here we've been playing 3-note per string scales effectively, but we're not really calling the scales anything or the notes. We're just going through those shapes. And just getting used to your shapes and the sound of your shapes is a really important step to take. So I'd say that to begin with, start with, because we're in C here, start with your major pentatonic, shape 1, and get really used to what those notes sound like so that you can play those notes back in your head without having to play them on the guitar. And you'll get to a point where, if you can, think of a melody line, or if you've got the ability to sing a melody line, you can do that as well. But having, for example, within this shape, if I went na 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 na, and I went, I already know where that is. Na 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 na. You start to get the idea that you can think of lines and you can sing lines, and while you're singing them, your hand plays it. And even getting into lines where you're going na 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 na, and you're obviously, when you're singing, it takes longer for you to translate what you've got in your mind to your vocal cords to then sing it. When you're thinking of these lines, that kind of thing, following on 3 notes, you can think of that as quickly as you can play it. So it really starts to become such a conscious experience of you interacting with the music you're playing over the top of, rather than just being told it's in C major and then you're just forever going. And just playing through the notes of the major pentatonic shape. Because that is just like, it's painting by numbers, I guess, would be a way to describe it. That you've been told, though, that's where you put your finger for this key, so do that. Rather than just thinking, well, I want to create music, I want to come up with the lines that I've got in my head, I want to, be creative with my lead guitar playing. And when you do that, there are no rules. You can just go wherever you want to with it. And all the lines, all of the myriad of lines that you can think of in your head, you can now put onto the fretboard, which for me is a lot more attractive than just playing through scales. So I love getting into this kind of playing because very few players actually want to try and do this. And I've just thrown away my pick, but they don't want to shoot from the hip because it's not how they've learned to play. They've learned the key of a song and then they go to the scale. When you don't know everything beforehand, then it really does test your ear and your musical ability. But before we finish, let's have one more look at Robin's solo. Plenty of different ideas going on here from Robin, and a huge thank you to Robin for playing this solo for us tonight. And make sure that you do check out all of his social media links that are in the description below, and head over to his YouTube channel as well. Subscribe to that. It's Shatner's Hairpiece. If you want to type that into YouTube, you'll be able to find it, but like I said, links are below. So, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!